Well, first of all, let me thank everyone who's invited me here to speak. In a sense, I think what I am going to talk about does qualify as a grand challenge, namely to how do we create, how do we inspire the next generation of what I call academic Caesars. And this is the title of a book that that will be coming out in the summer with Sage. It's a short book. So that should be gratifying. What it does is it reflects on the condition of universities in the 21st century. The reason why I focus on the figure of Caesar is because if you know something about Roman history, Caesar was a figure who originated as being, the first among equals, but then became the emperor, right, in terms of what the position meant. And there's a sense in which we require, I think, in the current day, in terms of the defense of the university as an institution, that we require someone who comes from the academic ranks, who understands the nature of the academic way of life, academic knowledge production, but nevertheless is able to rise above simply identifying with academics as a class of people, but is able to stand for the university as an institution. And so this is what I mean by the academic Caesar. It's that sort of a person. And this, I think, is a very distinctive kind of personality, especially if you look nowadays at the sort of people who do end up running universities. Of course, most of the people who run universities have been or are academics of some sort. And so, for example, at my own university, Warwick, we actually have made a practice, at least for the last couple of times, or maybe 3 times even, of hiring people who have been academically quite significant people in their own fields. But that, of course, is coming under serious challenge, and it's becoming increasingly common for people to run universities whose primary competence, in fact, might be in running the R&D division of a large corporation. Okay, or maybe has some kind of experience in running an organization that has kind of the scale and scope of a university if you abstract away from the content of what a university does, right? So the number of people who work for it, the number of the sort of cash turnover, that kind of thing. And I think this is a very dangerous mistake, I can see why it might be attractive now, but nevertheless, I think I'm one of these people who believes, for example, that it might not be a bad idea that people might need to be certified in a certain way before they are qualified to be able to run a university because of the distinctiveness of universities as institutions. Okay, so this is kind of where I'm coming from. So I'm coming from a kind of point of view that believes that the university is a very distinctive, unique kind of organization. It is an organization devoted to knowledge production, and I will go further and say knowledge as a public good. Okay, and so that then raises a lot of interesting questions about what exactly is the reach of this institution called the university, because since we began to live in a knowledge society or knowledge economy as it's called, let's say in the last 25 years, certainly since the end of the Cold War, there are many other organizations that are producing knowledge on a regular basis. And some of them are often located on the outskirts of universities, like science parks and things of that kind. And even if we're talking about the way in which credentialing and certification, the sort of thing that students go to universities for, that's also being produced by for-profit, purpose-made kinds of organizations as well. And all of these different organizations are in direct competition with universities in aspects of knowledge production that in the past universities had held a monopoly in. Okay? And that's been one of the consequences of our living in a knowledge economy, knowledge society. Namely, just about anything nowadays can qualify as producing knowledge, and so the universities no longer have a natural privilege. And so then it becomes very important to figure out what is distinctive about the university. Okay? It's in those circumstances. I think very early on, when university leaders embraced the idea of the knowledge society and the knowledge economy, they thought it was going to be to a particular advantage of universities. But in fact, what it has done, it is to basically kind of flatten the notion of knowledge that is seen as desirable or appropriate for people in society to acquire. And so universities are often put at a very distinct disadvantage because universities, at least as they're normally constituted, you might say, are multifunctional organizations, right? They don't just specialize in either providing credentials or providing research, let alone patents or anything like that. There are other kinds of organizations that can do each of those activities more efficiently. But the university somehow combines these things, and it's somehow necessary for the existence of the university that these things be not just combined, but in some sense integrated. Right? And so the nature of the integration that gives the university its wholeness is the kind of thing that needs, as it were, it's the ball, that the academic leader needs to have his eye on all the time. It's what is this thing, this integrated thing.